I give them a lot of credit because they use that so frequently. And that's why they have so much success. I mean, it is an iconic melody in and of itself, but it is that repetition and it is that usage. Whereas I feel like a lot of sound logo projects that come in, will get to the finish line and they'll be excited to use it, and then a month or two later, they'll be like, we're not seeing quite the results that we'd hoped. And it's like,
you're not going to see it after a month.
A, you're not going to see it after a month, but B, you got to use it consistently, and potentially in multiple places. So, no, State Farm does it right.
There's a lot of new tech coming out right now, and I know that you're probably well immersed in what's going on with AI and all of the, oh my God, there's the elephant in the room, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
There it is.
But what tech are you excited about right now, and where do you think sound design is headed?
Yeah, I think wearables is really interesting. Having voice-driven experiences is really, I see a massive boom in development of that happening, obviously with the big players, but also with startups. And I think it's really interesting for our space because we have a very important role within that ecosystem. So I think that's very interesting. I'm seeing a lot. It's fascinating to see voice kind of coming back into the game a little bit. I think 5 years ago, custom, brand voices were like, I thought it was going to explode. And then it kind of went silent, I feel like, for me at least. Others may have gotten more proposals out of this than I, but really for me in the last 3 months, I've seen several RFPs come through with requests for custom, neural voices. So
are these AI voices, or
Yeah.
are they actual? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's very interesting space, and having a customized branded voice that can constantly adapt, and so we're seeing a lot more of that come through. But I think wearables is the most exciting to me just because it's so dependent upon the audio interplay. And voice is certainly a part of that too.
Have you worked on anything like that yet, or is that in the future?
I have. I'm actually in process on a project right now. That's pretty amazing. I can't speak to it directly, but
Of course.
I got NDAs.
Yes, I get it.
But I did work on Google Glass whenever that was 14, 15 years ago. And that was really an amazing challenge, and actually also really shaped the way I think about sound as a communicator.
What was the challenge there?
So it had bone conduction audio. So essentially on the arm of the glasses.
Messages, videos, or photos. Tap on a photo to share it and choose one of your friends.
Want to take a picture? From the home screen, just say, "Okay, Glass, take a picture."
I have earbuds
Yeah.
that are exactly like that. I love it,
Yeah.
actually, because it doesn't go in my ear.
Yeah.
It doesn't plug anything, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's very interesting, and I'd never worked on anything like that. So trying to do something that was, bespoke to that product experience, to that brand. And at the time, Google didn't have an in-house team or any sound design language. So we kind of started the building blocks there on that product. But I worked with a really talented, super smart engineer there that was just thinking about information communication with simple melodic concepts that changed the way I think about simplicity in design. Because when you listen to those sounds, they're on my website, if interested, they're certainly dated at this point. But the basic sequencing still holds true, And there's something good about the simplicity with those too.
How would you update it? I'm curious. Like if you were to get on that project again and you were to update it to what you would hear around now,
well,
what would you do?
I actually think it's still somewhat appropriate for Google's design language. They've kind of maintained that more, simplistic, organic language overall, primary color kind of, in the sound sense. So for that brand, I don't know that I would change it much. Personally, I find with technology that is as close to you as something like glasses are, it can be softer. It can be more textural. Just even tiny tweaks like, putting a little swoop in front of something percussive, some melodic percussiveness to where it kind of prepares the user.
And a decay, maybe?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, just tiny stuff like that, I think goes a really long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people on this podcast who talk about healthcare and the beeps in hospitals. And that's one of the things that's been mentioned over and over and over again because they're very computeristic, computerized sounds, right?
Yeah.
And they sound alarming even if it's not an alarm.
Yeah.
So part of the problem is there's no decay on these computerized sounds.
Mm-hmm.
They sound very abrupt to our ears, and that means they stress us out.
Yeah. No, 100%. And those tiny tweaks, whether it be softening the attack, lengthening the decay, adding some more textural material to soften it, it's tiny tweaks like that just, really go a long way.
Yeah. I get the feeling it's kind of like putting round edges on hard angles.
That's exactly right. And that's one, that's a good call out. That's something I did for a project visually. They'd been working with another agency who crafted their sound logo to be it's like a square wave tone with like delay on it. And it's very perceived to be very futuristic and cold.
Is this a brand you can mention, or are you still under NDA? Or
no, this was
okay.
This was State Farm.
Okay.
So the State Farm audio logo. So yeah, essentially what happened, I was working with Wolf Olins. Well, before that, they'd been working with another agency for several months and just couldn't there was a communication challenge, I think, that the audio branding agency really wasn't understanding. So they'd gotten to the final endpoint and State Farm had gotten this asset that sound logo that really wasn't meeting their goals, and certainly not representing their brand attributes, right? One of them was like calming confidence and genuine empathy. These types of words do not represent square waves with delay on them, right? That's a very kind of futuristic soundscape, very cold, very dry. So for me, I had 3 months to work on this project, understanding what went wrong, having stakeholder interviews, listening workshops to really get under the hood of what happened here. Because, the agency that worked on this I have a ton of respect for. They're very talented. And I knew there was a communication issue, right? So I was like, okay, I got to get under the hood. And before touching any design, I have to understand what's going on here. So that was in one of the slides is I took a square wave and had an example. Here's what this sounds like. And I took a sine wave, essentially shaving the edges off, like you said, had an example of that and being like, I'm not just going to deliver a sine wave for your melody, but here's a simple tweak at a foundational level, that we can add to, or take away the square wave and use a sine wave as a base level, right? And they were like, oh, we're already, 65% there. So visual storytelling, is super important too.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Yeah, I think we do see things. I mean, it depends on who you're talking to, obviously. People remember things in different ways. Some people are very audio oriented, some people are very visual oriented, but I'm sure in what you have to do with getting your point across to the people that you're trying to get to work with you, that you need to cater to however they want things to be presented.
Totally. Yeah, and it's usually both. It's like, there's a visual component, a couple slides that set things up, and then the audio, representation of that. Yeah, you kind of gotta get it up from all angles there.
I also wanted to talk to you because we are also on the jury for the International Sound Awards.
Yes.
So that's how we met, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So when I don't know how long you've been doing it. How is this your first year, or have you been doing it?
I
4?
think it's
Okay, so
4.
longer than me, actually,
Yeah.
because I think this was my 3rd year.
I think it's 4.
Yeah.
3 or
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you finding that? And I'm curious as to how you got into it in the first place. Like, how did they end up inviting you to be a jury member?
Yeah, I think Kai was just familiar with my company's work, and then I was also, when I went to the other agency, familiar with our work there, and he just hit me up, asking if I'd be interested, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, happy to join. But in the 4 years, like, I've seen a ton of growth, a lot more companies submitting, which is awesome. It shows there's more demand for the work, and great work around that's coming from all these different agencies. So it's really cool. I mean, a lot of it is most of the work I've reviewed in the last 4 years have been more kind of traditional sonic branding, with brand anthems, sound logos, variations, and such. Not as much UX. I mean, there's a couple of UX studies here and there, but no, it's just great to be a part of that community and to hear all the cool work coming, because it's at a global scale. You're hearing, oddly, this year I think I heard maybe like 6 case studies from the UAE. There's a ton of work happening. I was like,
Yes.
out of the, I don't know, 10 or 12 I reviewed, there was like 6 from there. It was really
Yeah.
interesting. I was like, huh.
One of those was a like a walkthrough museum tour almost, wasn't it? And it had like a really beautiful soundscape to it. I
don't
remember
know
that
if I
one.
reviewed that one, because they select, because
Yeah.
say there's 20 submissions,
Sure.
I'll get random 12 and you get a random.
I think I only saw 1 or 2 from that area, so you
Uh,
probably saw way more, but I loved that soundscape, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it won an award this year. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
really cool. I mean, the easy pull, I think, is to really lean on heritage instrumentation, for those regions, which is appropriate, but maybe on the nose. And this is dependent, obviously, on the client and what they're looking for. They get last say. But I thought there was some really good examples there of how do we marry heritage with modernity or Western, not modernity, just more Western influence. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. There was some really good stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also another one, and I'm pretty sure it won an award too, the water treatments
I
that
didn't see
ended
that
up.
one.
Yeah, I think he was in Germany somewhere,
Huh.
but he was making these water treatments for the middle of offices because
Wow.
you'd hear the water and it would calm you down.
Cool.
And they were just they looked like works of art,
Yeah.
but they also had sound to them, which was very cool, like
So
deliberate sound.
He was building the fountains
Yeah,
themselves, and
yeah, it was kind of
Oh,
like a
cool.
fountain. Yeah, so it was
Nice.
a water feature that would sit in the middle of an office or wherever you wanted to put it,
Cool.
and it would have a sound associated with the trickling or spewing of water.
That's
and it
cool.
was it was just so many really imaginative things that you could do with sound
Yeah.
that make your environment way more vibrant.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I love being on the panel, because it's you see a brand that comes out with, whatever it may be, a brand anthem, sound logo, UX, experiential, and you're like, oh, I think I know this brand and what it should sound like, and then you hear it and you're like, oh wow, I wouldn't have thought about it that way, which is cool. That's a cool thing to experience.
Yeah, being able to offer something unexpected
Yeah.
is very cool.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's nice to hear that the International Sound Awards are expanding because, the amount of entries I was seeing from all over the world
Yep.
was really outstanding.
Mhm.
So, it's nice to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see what happens next year. I'm looking forward to more.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jesse Flores from Intercept Music, and you're listening to the Audio Branding Podcast, a great place to learn about how powerful sound can be. If you want to understand how to harness that power in your own life, keep listening.
So I want to ask you if you could leave one message about the power of sound for future generations. I know you must have an opinion on this. What would you tell people?
Use deliberately. Be careful with overdoing it. Simplify. Again, going back, it's a little redundant, but
Less is more.
less is more. I mean, honestly, this is kind of a mantra almost of life for me at this point. Just simplify, simplify, simplify. And I see this a lot with maybe new designers that are coming to space that are more composition, musical, or just composing more music generally. When I pull them in, I'm like, hey, let's give it a try. Let's try it on UX. Let's give you a shot on UX, see how you do. Oftentimes they're just very ornate, intricate, over layered, UX concepts. And it takes time to kind of learn that concept of simplicity and having the confidence to be simple, and because it's at the end of the day, it's about clarity. And that's not just UX. I mean, that's anything. I mean, if you think about State Farm, for example, the work that we did for that, any designer that's listening to this or agency owner or composer or whoever you may be, you would hear that and you'll say, yeah, it's not that crazy. It's not that amazing. Like and I'll admit it's not, but it's very suitable for that brand, for the context of their advertisements. And that's the goal of the work, and being able to present that. And there's a reason behind it, and really the iconic nature of that example is the melody, a melody that's been around for so long. But I think that's what I would say is just, use lightly, be careful with overusing and polluting, and simplify.
Yeah. I can see how that would be very helpful for people to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to State Farm, you're hearing that logo a lot.
A lot.
Right?
Yeah.
So the last thing you want for it is to become annoying.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, I give them a lot of credit because they use that so frequently. And that's why they have so much success. I mean, it is an iconic melody in and of itself, but it is that repetition and it is that usage. Whereas I feel like a lot of sound logo projects that come in, we'll get to the finish line and they'll be excited to use it. And then a month or two later, they'll be like, we're not seeing quite the results that we'd hoped. And it's like,
you're not going to see it after a month.
A, you're not going to see it after a month, but B, you got to use it consistently, and potentially in multiple places. So, no, State Farm does it right. They've used it very, very well.
Yeah, I've had that discussion with a lot of audio branding people in that they work on things and then the client doesn't use it consistently and then wonder why it isn't effective.
Yeah.
Well, there's your answer right there.
I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think with sound logos, there's a big resurgence, I would say, in the last 3 years on companies really feeling like they need one, which I think is, smart. But I think it depends on the brand. It depends on the industry, all these things, right? I don't think every company needs one necessarily. But
Who do you think does need one?
Does?
Yes. Who does need one?
Like specifically or?
No. Oh. I'm not asking for specific companies. Yeah. I'm just like a type of company that you think would really benefit from this kind of thing.
Well, I think when you learn it or when you take a look at industry, for example, like insurance, they all are playing that game. Therefore, you kind of need to have something in the mix. It needs to be differentiated, but
yeah, insurance is an interesting little industry there. And I've had this discussion before as well. And often we'll talk about this because insurance is such a boring industry
Yeah.
that they have to do something really outlandish to get your attention.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's why they have these spokespeople.
Yeah.
It's why they have these really iconic audio logos, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I don't know.
I think
Maybe banking is one of those things.
finance, I think is
Yeah.
a good place. Automotive, I think is an important one. I mean, majority of automotive companies, brands have, there's Coda. That's my new dog.
He's cute.
Thank you. But yeah, automotive space, like the majority of heritage brands have that as part of their brand and marketing materials. Some don't use it. Like, Nissan uses theirs all the time. Lexus uses theirs all the time. Kia does now. Hyundai kind of does. Who was I just thinking of? Who was it? Oh, BMW doesn't. Mercedes doesn't use theirs.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny. Some of the
yeah.
higher end ones just are not. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It's like when you think of even the newer players, startups, I wouldn't consider Tesla a startup anymore, but they don't really advertise, because I worked with them and it was like, what do you think about a sound logo? And, and they're like, we don't really advertise. It's like, well, you don't need one.
I guess not
yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. A lot of companies are wanting a sound logo these days, but
Mhm.
they don't have an immediate use case or aren't, they're a little timid to use it consistently because of a couple of reasons. Number one, just being simply time in an advertisement. If it's a 15 or 30 second, like that, anywhere between 3 and 1.5 seconds, you see people on marketing teams
Oh, they
freaking
hate
out
knocking down the.
about that,
I have had to work on scripts
Yeah.
like that as a voice talent,
Yeah.
and let me tell you, that is a tough one.
It's tough. It's tough. You got to get it in there.
Yeah.
But I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
a lot of these marketing teams aren't committed, and they're a little just shy and timid about taking up real estate there. But I think,
Especially in radio.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's only audio, it's interesting
Yeah.
to because they want to just squash everything
it all
into one little huge block.
Yeah.
And, like you say, 1.5 to 3 seconds of that is taken up with a logo,
Yep.
and you got to squeeze it all in, and
Yeah.
they don't want you to miss any words.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
So,
I mean, I get it.
yeah.
I totally understand. But I think you have to have a level, if you're going to jump into a project like that, you should have a level of commitment and a level of alignment at a leadership level. And, it's not always that simple or that easy. But it's just disappointing whenever you go through a project like that and it kind of never sees the light of day, or gets traction, because it does happen a lot. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I think it has to do with, the time there. Also, I think audio has always been kind of an afterthought, within
Yeah.
brand ecosystem.
Hence the
and-
reason I have this podcast.
yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think it still holds true. It's getting better. I think it's gotten better. But I do think it is still a little bit of an afterthought, and people are just kind of like, I'm seeing those tides change a little bit, but hopefully it'll flip. And I think it is, because there is just so much more inbound interest that gives me hope. And I think we're going to be with that new technology we spoke about across various levels, not just wearables. It's going to be audio dependent,
There's a lot coming, I think, that we have yet to see.
Oh yeah.
Also, I'm kind of aware of my own bias. Like, I would say, like you, that I think people are thinking more about sound, but then it's kind of like, speaking of cars, if you want to buy a certain car,
Yeah.
you start seeing that car on the road
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So it might be my own bias.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Manifest it.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you working on now that you can talk about?
Let me see what I can speak to.
Or in general terms, if you want.
Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, these projects in flight. I can't
yeah.
speak directly to, but it's a mixed bag. A couple traditional kind of sonic branding projects mainly audio, logo, and variations focused. And those are really exciting. Big brand, big. It'll make some noise out in the world. Across products, a couple really awesome, probably the most exciting time I would say in my career with just new inbound clients, that are across a range. I'm trying to like muddy my words, be careful about how I speak to it, but industries that you might not expect. Old school industries that are becoming more tech focused, for example, without getting too specific, which I think is interesting because I think sound is in technology starting to touch industries of old that are, modernizing. And then also kind of, home environment, appliances and things like that, which not the sexiest industry in the world, but I think a very important space because it is our homes and environments that we're designing for.
It's funny. I thought we'd be seeing a lot more of that by now.
Yeah.
And I have seen not very much of it, which surprised me. So, yeah, if they're working on a little more of that, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is a good thing. And, there's a lot of challenges in that space, just on the technology that's used and what is capable.
Well, I imagine your UX experience would come in very handy for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty technical. Obviously, brand is a big part of it, but a lot of the concepts and conversations I have are really about the technical side of it because it is a very big part. But yeah, right now it's super exciting because it's like I'm working on very emerging technology. I'm working on very older kind of industry segment that is kind of stepping into new technology, working in home material. I'm working in automotive. So it's a good balance. That's keeping me engaged. I that's what I love about, working for myself and is the variety. There's just a ton of because if I went in-house at a brand, I think that maybe someday that could be cool, but you're just kind of locked into one particular zone and, maybe working on one product or two products for 3 years. And whereas, I'm working on, 10 to 15 brands and various applications and industries and intentions, which is really cool.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps me engaged.
So, yeah, definitely makes it every day is different.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about my job.
Yeah.
Like voiceover is the same way.
Totally.
I'm always working on a different project every day and it just keeps it interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So is there anything that you want to leave us with sound-wise just before we end off here?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a great conversation. Just really appreciate it. And, any listeners, feel free to touch base anytime.
How can they do that if they want to get in touch with you?
I would go to my website, CMooreSound.com, CMoore Sound, and check out the contact page. That's the best way. But I often take on, interns. I have one on right now. Sometimes I'll take on two, but also talent out there, people who are composers who have, or strategists or creative directors who have worked directly in the UX or brand space. Please touch base because I'm always looking for help on projects.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Connor. This has been really insightful, and I've enjoyed talking with you about this a lot. You have a great perspective.
Thanks, Jodi. It's awesome.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.